So if you want to do a better wheelie, like the redneck roller coaster or the zoomina, the wheels that the car pivots on while doing a wheelie have to have stiffer springs so that the body of the car sits higher above the ground when it goes into a roll. So here's how I'm going to do it. I've just got done removing one of the struts. So there's your typical Lumina strut with bad rotors but good brakes. There's my homemade strut disassembling tool. And there's a Honda strut from a four-door Civic. Now, so long as the inside diameter of the spring is larger than that of the post on the collar on the strut, well, then you can do it. If the spring happens to be too long, you just take your cutting torch or your grinder with a cutting wheel on it and nip it to whatever length you want. So I'll put this disassembly tool on that I've made. It'll clamp the spring. I use an air tool to do that. It's much quicker than ratchets. And then I use my air tool to remove the nut on top. Once the spring is all clamped, then everything comes apart safely. Then I just set that on the floor, the top part, slip the new spring in. That I won't use a tool on. I'll just take the air gun to it and let it explode. One end will go, of course, shooting down the driveway. Then I'll just measure how well it fits in there. Probably do have to cut it. Zip, zip. Zoom, zoom. And you'll see the next step in a few minutes. Boing! No problem. Simple as that. Now my strut tool is on. The vice grips just stop the sidebars from sort of following the curve of the spring and twisting. Air ratchet on there. Hold the nut down there and clamp it about an inch at a time back and forth to clamp the spring evenly. Once it's all clamped, then I just remove the main nut on the strut post. And no boing or nothing, it just comes apart. Alright, I think it's compressed enough, so let's take her apart. Oops, wrong way. Done. See how simple that was? Anybody can make a tool like that. Strut looks in good shape. It's going to work good, but I'm going to do a little nipper. Well, I will have to measure it first. Well, I did a measurement. 7.5 inches is where I cut this sucker. I won't cut it 90 degree, I'll cut it on a slope so it's got a flatter surface so it seats better on the plate it sits on. Takes a bit longer when you cut them longitudinally. Okay, you almost use that for the second one. Except that end's narrower, so it'll get in the way of that rubber bumper. so, remove the plate, put that in there, put the plate on, and put it all back together. Couldn't be easier. And the plate goes in that location. Perfect. Oops. Fucking phone. Always happens. I better answer it. It's usually Hollywood that calls me out here. Hello? Well, just after I got off the phone, I got a box of lawnmower blades. Better holds up my contraption. So now I've got this top nut on finger tight. So now I put it on all the way tight. And spring and rubber bumper and everything's in there. Ready for disassembly of the spring compressor. And we're off. Like the cap on my next fear. Ready for reinstall. Beer. Well, now you can see it all installed, ready to work once I do the other side. Next, well, I'm disassembling the other side now to do the same thing to it. I thought I'd give you a little tip. If you want to get a ball joint apart, of course I've got the nut off now, you don't want to use a pickle fork and tear your grease boot. Good idea is to jack up the rotor while everything's still kind of assembled pretty high so the car's got almost no weight on the jack, and then that's like giving it pressure to want to pull it apart. Then beat on the collar where it more taper locks in, and the shock waves of the sleeve while it's oscillating after you beat it hard will cause it to release, and then it'll go boink and pop apart. Saves you so much trouble and destruction of grease boots. And then I use my big long wrecking bar to stick in the space of the control arm and pry down and just pull the ball joint post out of the hole. Then the last thing I do is just unbolt the top and everything falls out. Well, the other strut's done and in a happy place.